Victory belongs to the most persevering. Patton was not just a war epic. It was a brutal collision of ego obsession and filmmaking chaos that pushed everyone involved to their breaking point. Scenes of battlefield glory hide the reality of tanks misfiring, stuntmen collapsing from exhaustion, and tempers erupting so fiercely that entire call sheets had to be rewritten overnight. It was not a smooth production. It was a storm disguised as a masterpiece. Today we reveal 20 weird facts about Patton's secrets of danger, conflict, and raw ambition. Fact number 20. George C. Scott rewrites history on set. George C. Scott steps into the role of Patton with volcanic intensity. What audiences do not know is that he fights daily with the crew about how the general should speak, stand, and command the frame. He rewrites lines on the spot. He shifts blocking to assert dominance. He even challenges historical accuracy if he feels it weakens the character. It is not rebellion for vanity. It is obsession with presence. His approach rattles the production rhythm. Dailies come back uneven. Scenes drift into unexpected tones. But the gamble pays off because the tension in Scott's performance becomes the engine that drives the film. It is controlled chaos turned into cinematic electricity. Fact number 19. The opening monologue nearly does not happen. The iconic speech before the giant American flag almost collapses into disaster. Lighting rigs malfunction under the massive backdrop. The flag refuses to hang straight. Crew members fight winds that seem determined to sabotage the scene. Scott demands take after take, pushing through exhaustion until the cadence feels like a battlefield assault. What audiences do not know is that this monologue is originally planned as a mid-film sequence. After seeing the raw footage, producers realize it is too commanding to hide. They move it to the front, reshaping the entire narrative. Not a quiet introduction, but a thunderclap. The movie enters history with an image that almost never existed. Fact number 18. Filming in Spain turns into a military operation. The production moves to Spain for landscapes, weapons, and tanks. But nothing goes smoothly. Real armored divisions are borrowed from the Spanish army, and the logistics become a nightmare. Tanks break down. Fuel deliveries arrive late. Local officers argue with the crew over safety rules. Days vanish while waiting for vehicles to start. Extras dressed as soldiers stand in scorching heat with no shade as call sheets crumble. It looks like a well-oiled military spectacle on screen. It feels like a collapsing battlefield behind the camera. The irony is brutal. A movie about precision warfare is filmed under conditions that are anything but precise. Yet somehow, the chaos creates grandeur. Fact number 17. The slapping incident scene almost breaks the film. Recreating the infamous real-world moment when Patton slaps a soldier becomes one of the most dangerous. Emotional scenes of the shoot. Scott refuses to fake the intensity. Crew members worry he will injure the actor. Tension spikes. The actor braces himself for impact while medics stand by off-camera. Scott strikes with terrifying commitment. The sound echoes across the set. When the take ends, silence falls. What audiences do not know is that the crew debates removing the scene entirely, fearing backlash. Not softness, but calculation. They decide to keep it because Patton is not a gentle portrait. It is truth through fire and conflict. Peak number 16. Real tank blasts shake the camera operators. Practical explosions are not just loud, they are dangerous. During desert battle sequences, the effects team rigs charges close enough to the actors that shock waves push dust into their eyes and mouths. Camera operators anchor themselves as tanks roar past within feet of their lenses. One operator is knocked to the ground when a blast erupts stronger than expected. Equipment overheats under relentless sun. Crew members swallow sand with every breath. Yet the footage that emerges feels alive. Not digital trickery, not controlled safety. It is raw physical power captured in real time. The cost is exhaustion and risk, but the reward is authenticity that modern productions rarely attempt. Fact number 15. George C. Scott refuses his Oscar before he even wins it. George C. Scott delivers a towering performance, yet behind the scenes he insists he does not want awards. He warns the studio that he will not attend ceremonies or participate in competition. He believes acting is not a race. When nominations approach, tension spreads across the production office. Publicists fear bad press. Executives fear embarrassment. Scott does not bend. When he ultimately wins, he becomes the first actor in history to reject an Academy Award. What audiences do not know is that this decision is rooted in his belief that Patton should stand on its own without Hollywood celebration. It is not ego. It is rebellion, a refusal to let glamour overshadow craft. Fact number 14. The Battle of El Guadar is recreated with terrifying realism. The massive El Gueter sequence demands hundreds of extras tanks and practical explosions. The crew spends weeks mapping the battlefield across harsh terrain, but the weather refuses to cooperate. Winds whip dust into lungs and camera lenses. Explosions misfire. Tanks stall mid-charge. One blast sends debris flying far closer to actors than intended, forcing a temporary shutdown. Still, the footage is so visceral that military veterans who see early cuts praise the accuracy. What audiences do not know is that everything feels unstable during filming. Every moment is a negotiation between danger and ambition. But that instability creates the brutal authenticity that defines the film. Fact number 13. Carl Malden struggles with the complexity of Bradley. Carl Malden approaches General Omar Bradley with deep respect, but the role is not simple. Bradley must contrast Patton without becoming a caricature. Malden battles exhaustion, memorizing long stretches of tactical dialogue and adjusting to Scott's unpredictable intensity. Some scenes require dozens of takes because Malden's subtle reactions must anchor the chaos around him. Crew members often remark that Malden is the quiet heartbeat of the film. Not flashy, but essential. What audiences do not know is that Malden frequently questions whether he captures Bradley's calm authority. The pressure weighs heavily, yet his restraint becomes the perfect counterbalance to Scott's volcanic performance. Fact number 12. The production creates a mini-army for authenticity. To make the war feel real, the filmmakers assemble hundreds of extras and train them with basic military drills. Marching, firing stances, battlefield movement. The training becomes so intense that some extras collapse under the heat. Wardrobe teams scramble to repair torn uniforms. Weapons crews struggle to maintain aging rifles on tight schedules. It is not glamorous. It is grueling. But the result is striking. The extras move with discipline that gives each battle scene weight. What audiences do not know is that these makeshift soldiers often perform better than expected, shocking even the technical advisors. What appears effortless on screen is built on sweat repetition and sheer resilience. Fact number 11. The footage of dead soldiers almost gets cut. Patton does not shy away from the horrors of war, but the editors face pressure to soften certain images. One key moment shows Patton walking among rows of fallen soldiers. Executives fear it will upset viewers and slow pacing. The editing room becomes a battleground of artistic vision versus commercial caution. After heated debate, the footage stays, not to shock, but to ground the film in reality. What audiences do not know is that this choice becomes central to the film's power. Without the stillness of death, the spectacle of battle loses meaning. It is a moment of honesty that nearly disappears forever. Fact number 10. The mid-roll mayhem and a nearly lost reel. Halfway through production, disaster strikes when a crucial reel from a desert battle sequence goes missing. Assistants tear through storage crates, searching under tarps, inside vehicles, and even through piles of discarded call sheets. Panic spreads because the lost footage contains explosions that cannot be easily recreated. Meanwhile, tempers flare between departments as blame bounces from camera crew to transport team. Hours become days. Then, a technician finds the reel tucked inside a mislabeled container, saved by accident rather than procedure. The relief is overwhelming. And before we continue, go ahead and like and subscribe because preserving chaotic filmmaking history takes commitment. The crisis reveals how fragile the production truly is. One mistake nearly alters the entire film. Fact number 09. Scott performs many of his own. Dangerous moments. George C. Scott refuses to rely on doubles for several physically demanding shots. He insists on climbing into moving tanks, walking through active explosion zones, and riding high-speed vehicles across uneven terrain. The stunt coordinator grows increasingly concerned as Scott pushes for realism. Not caution, but relentless drive. During one take, he slips while stepping off a tank and narrowly avoids falling under its treads. Crew members gasp in terror. Scott brushes it off and resets. What audiences do not know is that his determination forces the production to rewrite safety protocols mid-shoot. His willingness to risk injury adds authenticity, but also tension that never fully disappears. Fact number 08. The desert locations punish the crew. The desert landscapes look stunning on screen, but filming there is brutal. Temperatures spike so high that makeup melts within minutes. Water trucks run behind schedule, leaving background actors dehydrated and exhausted. Equipment overheats until cameras must be wrapped in wet cloth just to survive. Every day begins with optimism and ends with blistered skin and frayed tempers, not a scenic location. a battlefield disguised as beauty. What audiences do not know is that some scenes are shot in single takes because no one can withstand extended exposure. The relentless sun breaks rhythm and morale, but it also shapes the film's rough authenticity. Fact number 07. The score transforms the film in the edit room. Composer Jerry Goldsmith delivers a bold, experimental score mixing traditional orchestration with eerie echo effects created by electronic manipulation. At first, the studio panics. The music sounds too strange, too modern for a historical epic. But during editing, something clicks. The haunting theme becomes Patton's inner voice, a blend of confidence and madness. The editors reconstruct entire sequences around the rhythm of the score, discovering emotional layers they had not planned. What audiences do not know is that Goldsmith's sound is almost removed for being too unconventional. Instead, it becomes the heartbeat of the movie, not background music, a psychological weapon. Fact number 06. The dogfight between director and screenwriter. Director Franklin J. Schaffner and screenwriter Francis Ford Coppola clash repeatedly over tone and character focus. Coppola wants a portrait of moral ambiguity. Schaffner wants a grand epic anchored in spectacle. Their arguments spill into production meetings, forcing producers to mediate. Pages are rewritten at dawn. Scenes are reblocked at noon. Actors struggle to adapt to shifting vision. Not harmony, creative combat. What audiences do not know is that this tension sharpens the film's complexity. Patton becomes neither a simple hero nor a simple critique. It becomes a battleground of ideas shaped by two powerful artistic wills. Fact number 05. The famous reincarnation speech almost breaks George C. Scott. The reincarnation speech is one of the defining moments of the film, yet filming it becomes a test of endurance. Scott demands absolute silence on set, insisting that even the faintest noise will ruin the spiritual tension. Crew members freeze in place, terrified to breathe too loudly. The heat grows oppressive. Sweat drips into eyes. Scott delivers take after take, pushing deeper into Patton's belief in destiny. At one point, he becomes so emotionally strained that the director calls an unscheduled break, fearing collapse. What audiences do not know is that Scott later admits the scene drains him more than any battle sequence. Not physical strain, spiritual exhaustion. The power on screen comes from the cost off screen. Fact number 04. The German headquarters scene uses real military intelligence methods. When filmmakers stage scenes inside the German command bunker, they decide to recreate authentic intelligence procedures rather than rely on guesswork. Consultants demonstrate how officers interpret reconnaissance photos, track troop movements, and issue orders under pressure. Actors study real wartime documents. Props teams recreate maps with astonishing accuracy based on declassified materials. The result is a scene that feels unnervingly real. What audiences do not know is that technical advisors criticize early drafts for oversimplifying strategy. After revisions, the sequence becomes so precise that actual veterans comment on its authenticity, not imitation, reconstruction. It is a rare moment where cinema mirrors classified history. Fact number 03. Real explosives create dangerous close calls. The production refuses to fake intensity. Many explosions use real charges buried in unstable ground. During one extended battle, a charge detonates earlier than expected, sending a fireball inches from a group of extras. Another misfire sends debris soaring over camera operators who barely duck in time. Every explosion becomes a gamble. Effects crews work with trembling focus, knowing one calculation error can be catastrophic. What audiences do not know is that insurance officers visit the set twice, demanding changes to risk procedures. The production adapts but refuses to fully scale back danger. They want realism, and realism demands fear. Fact number 02. A massive logistical failure creates an improvised masterpiece. During a key battle sequence, dozens of tanks are scheduled to appear in synchronized formation. But on shooting day, a mechanical failure wipes out half the vehicles. The director faces disaster. Instead of delaying, he improvises using strategic camera placement to make a handful of tanks look like an entire division. Extras run repeated patterns, creating illusions of depth and scale. Actors follow new blocking drawn on dusty ground minutes before filming. What audiences do not know is that this improvised approach becomes one of the most visually powerful scenes in the film. Not precision, ingenuity. A crisis transforms into triumph. Fact number 01. The final shot is filmed in a moment of emotional collapse. The haunting final shot of Patton walking alone beside his dog masks the turmoil behind the camera. Production is exhausted, morale is low, crew members face burnout and illness. The director pushes through, believing the ending must feel stripped and honest. Scott steps into the frame carrying the emotional weight of months of conflict, dust, injury, and tension. When the camera rolls, silence settles like a final judgment. What audiences do not know is that the take used is the only one filmed. No rehearsal, no correction, just pure human exhaustion captured with devastating clarity. Not performance, revelation. Bonus fact: a secret edit saves the whole film. In the final weeks of post-production, editors discover that early cuts feel too heavy, lacking rhythm between battles and strategy scenes. A junior editor proposes rearranging segments to echo Patton's shifting emotional states. The idea seems risky, too experimental for a major war film, but they try it. Suddenly, the story flows with new purpose. The structure feels alive. What audiences do not know is that this bold re-edit is done quietly, without studio approval. It is only revealed after executives praise the final cut. A hidden gamble becomes the spine of the film. Patton is not just a war epic. It is a battlefield of artistic battles, technical risks, and human endurance that reshapes 20th century cinema. Its legacy survives because it refuses safety and embraces truth in all its grit and glory. If you want more untold stories from behind the camera, like and subscribe and march with us into the next cinematic campaign.